Welcome to another in our series of Kehillat Israel podcasts. This is a recording of Rabbi Amy Bernstein's weekly Friday morning Torah study.
Chaye Sarah starts at Genesis 23, verse 1. But let's look at what happens just before this. We get a genealogy right before Chaye Sarah begins. But what happens right before the genealogy? We have the Akedah. We have the binding of Isaac, right? And I've been reading a bunch of stuff and different commentaries this year than other years. And I don't know if it's just lifting up different aspects of the story than I really have focused on before. But here we have this traumatic event between father and son of Abraham being willing to sacrifice Isaac and doesn't have to because God sends an angel who has to call Abraham twice to get his attention because he's so, I have to think, lost in his own fanaticism that he doesn't hear. How else would you be willing to sacrifice your son, right? And then we get at verse 19, Vayashav Avraham el Ne'arav. Avraham returns to his servants. Okay, we don't see anything about Isaac here. Nothing. So you have this incredibly intense experience for Isaac being, tied, bound, the knife lifted to slaughter him. And then he is saved not by his father changing his mind, but by a malach calling to Abraham, and he sacrifices the ram instead. So I don't know. It just seems so odd. I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's very odd that it's Abraham who returns. Abraham doesn't appear to be with Yitzchak. Is Yitzchak not talking to his father? Right? Like, are they estranged now? I don't know. Okay, so that's number one. So Isaac's not there. It's just Abraham who returns to his servants. Is Abraham embarrassed now and doesn't want to deal with Isaac because he almost did this thing to him? I don't know. But we get this whole genealogy at the end of that incident because, of course, we have to have the birth of Rivka, right? So we get the lineage and birth of Rivka so that we're clear that she is from the family of Abraham. And then we begin the next parsha, Chaye Sarah, the next chapter. And what does it say? V'yiyu Chaye Sarah 100 shanim ve'esrim shana ve'sheva shanim shnei Chaye Sarah. Sarah's life, the life of Sarah was 100 years plus 20 years plus 7 years. Okay, that's an odd way to say she was 127. Torah is aware of that. The commentators are very aware of that that's an odd way to say it. But they have all these the rabbis have all these lovely interpretations of that, which is when she was 100, she seemed as if she was 20. And when she was 20, she seemed as young as 7. Yeah, I know, right? Pam just rolled her eyes, right? So this is the rabbis trying to deal with the fact that this is like a mangled way to say she was 127 years old. But what are we being told, right? If her life came to 127 years, that means we're being told, Vatamat Sarah. Sarah died. All right. So Avraham comes back alone. We don't see Yitzchak. We don't have any interaction between Yitzchak and Sarah again. We don't know that they ever saw each other again after the Akedah. Now, if you'll recall, our tradition is heavy with midrashim that say that Satan came to Sarah and told her about the Akedah as it was happening. She gets up in the morning. Her son and husband are gone, right? They get up vayashkem baboker. They get up early in the morning and saddle the ass and go. So our tradition says that Satan comes and tells Sarah what's happened, where Abraham has taken her son, Yitzchak, and that she dies as a result. And there's lots of explanations about why that killed her. But all of those midrashim are coming to deal with the question of, wait, what? He's spared, and the next thing we're told is that she dies. That's just harsh, right? Like that's right. Unless you want to imagine a whole bunch of things happening between them, okay, that's fine. That we could have those midrashim, but that's not what we have in Torah. We have Abraham and Yitzchak separated, and now we get Sarah's dead. Okay, where does she die? She dies in Kiryat Arba. Where was Avraham? Well, we get told that Avraham was in the land of the Philistines, in Gerar. He settled there for a long time. Sarah dies in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron. Okay? And in case we were not clear, Vayavo Avraham lispod l'Sarah v'livkta. Avraham has to come to mourn for Sarah. Vayavo Avraham. He has to come from somewhere. So it's very clear Avraham is not with Sarah. Sarah's in Kiryat Arba, in Hebron. That's not where Avraham is. Savina Tuval has her own explanation about this. She says there's actually two traditions here, the Avraham patriarchal narrative and the Sarai stories, and her partner is her half-brother Avram. And that those are two different traditions, Avram and Avraham. Okay, but if we don't do that, if we don't go there, that these are two different guys, then Avraham is not with Sarai when she dies. So have they been living apart?
Well, wouldn't you if somebody was going to sacrifice your kid? I mean, you'd never speak to her again.
So the question, Susan, you raise, I think, is when did Sarah separate from Avraham? Right? Like
I've always thought it was when he came down from the Akedah, but I don't know why I thought that.
Right, but because that is one of the explanations that would make sense, because it doesn't make sense otherwise that they're living apart unless something caused a rift. And what seems like a natural explanation for that rift is he was going to kill their kid to sacrifice it to his invisible God. Okay, but what's another possibility? That Sarai had nothing to do with any of that, that she leaves him before that. She settles her choice of heir by freeing, if you want to read Tuval, freeing Hagar and Ishmael. She frees them because she's making now not Ishmael, but Yitzchak her heir. Once that's in place, she leaves Avraham and goes to Hebron, which was Mamre. Which, what do we know is that Mamre? What's there? That big old tree, right? The terebinth of Mamre. Those kinds of trees were sacred to the goddess. Possibly Sarah has left this whole patriarchy business and has gone back to be a priestess and has gone back to Mamre. We don't know. What we know is she's not there. She dies separate. Yeah.
Do we know for certain that she was aware of the Akedah, that she knew that?
No. That is midrash. That's midrash.
We don't even know if she knew that her son was about to be sacrificed.
That's right. So that's why I'm saying it could be she knows nothing about any of this. She leaves before that. Once he is her successor, once he's the heir, and they free Hagar and Ishmael, she goes on with her life. She has settled the inheritance, and she leaves the family. She leaves Avraham, and she goes to do her own thing in Hebron and knows nothing about an Akedah. And that would explain why Abraham doesn't have to talk to her about it, because she's not there. We don't know. But I'm getting sadder and sadder this year as I'm like looking at the narrative. I'm like, everybody's breaking up. The family's splitting up. Like nobody's talking to anybody. Everybody's going their own way, doing their own thing. It's like really hard for me this year for them. I know I don't like it this year. All right. Susan, yes, speak.
Well, also it's called Chaye Sarah, and they got like this one sentence, Sarah died, and then the whole chapter's about something else.
Yeah.
What's
Correct.
that?
So, what's that about, right? Right. So it comes from the first words of the first line of that parsha. That's how all the parshiyot are named. But sometimes that practice becomes a bit ironic, right? That the whole chapter is called, the whole parsha is called Chaye Sarah, and it's all about Sarah's death and, the carrying on of the family without her. All right. So you see my sadness. Abraham arises. Rachel, do you want to say something before we move on?
What if the reason that it's phrased in that odd way, 100 years plus 20 years plus 7 years, is that it's actually trying to condense for us that entire other story about Sarah into just like one little line, and it's the phases of her life. And it's rounding, it's roughly, but it's like, because she was so old when she first became a mother. So the first 100 before she became that, roughly, again, not perfect, but then say 20, then the years of raising Isaac, and then the 7 that she's away back doing her that it's a way of saying there was the phase of 100 years, the phase of the 20 years, and the phase of the 7 years.
I expect to see that midrash on my desk by next week.
All right.
Beautiful, right? That it's episodic. It's talking about her life in chunks, and the chunks, of like all of us, we have stories, and these were the years she was in Duluth, and these were the years she was in LA, and these were the years she dealt with that offspring that she had. Right. So that, right. I love that. I love that interpretation. Beautiful. Okay. So he gets up from mourning, and he has to deal with the body. He has to deal with Sarah's corpse. So he purchases a cave. They try to give it to him. He says no. He wants to own the cave, so it can't be in question ever who it belongs to. So they go through this whole long mishigas of back and forth, and he buys it at an outrageous price. I was reading Leon Kass. I've been reading this new guy, Leon Kass, The Beginnings of Wisdom. And he was like, and Abraham makes this great deal. I don't know who Leon Kass was listening to when he wrote that, but 400 pieces of silver is a lot of money for a burial site. He does not negotiate for price here. He's wealthy. This is his wife, right? So he does not negotiate for price. He negotiates so that he owns the cave of Machpelah, so that there is no question that he's now a landowner in Canaan, and he owns his family's burial site. Okay, so that's what's important to know. And he gets ripped off big time. That's a huge amount of money for a cave to bury people in. So he buries her in Machpelah, facing Mamre, people. I don't know. Yep, okay. Even Robert Gorin is nodding. He's like, yes, indeed. Right. So now we get Avraham Zaken Baba Yamim. Abraham is old. He had come into days, and God blessed Avraham in everything. Okay. Another odd way to talk about somebody being old, about their age, is that he came into days. There's lots of midrashim about why it's stated like this. What we know is that he's old, and God had blessed him in all things, except where's those, descendants numerous as the stars of the heaven and the sands on the, that hasn't happened. Sarah's not there. She dies. She hasn't been around. We don't hear anything about him and Isaac. It's okay. So he's been blessed in all things. Really? Okay. So Abraham now starts thinking about Isaac's future, right? He's old. So he starts thinking about the future for Isaac, and he sends his servant Eliezer to go get a wife for Isaac from his people, not a local girl, And he's not going to let Isaac go to the out of the promised land. He's not going to let him go back to the homestead. And Cass, who I was reading, said something about Isaac leaving the promised land is about Abraham being afraid if Isaac leaves, so the promise will die, right? Like the covenantal relationship, passing this whole business of Yud Hey Vav Hey down, Yahwism will die. If Isaac goes back and is influenced by his family of origin and is taken into that family that doesn't worship Yud Hey Vav Hey, presumably. So whatever it is, Eliezer goes to get a wife. We all know the story of Eliezer, setting up the conditions by which God is going to let him know this is the right woman for Isaac, right? And so blah, blah, blah. We go through that story. The other thing is that when Abraham sends, Eliezer, he sends Eliezer to get someone who's going to say, yes, I will go, right? He has to get a crosser over for Avram. Avram is going to insist that the wife for his son is an Ivri, is an Over, is someone who crosses over and agrees to. And that's exactly what happens, of course. So we get Rivka, and we get that whole story. I want to go to the end of that story because I want to get to the part where they see each other. Okay, so her family says, let us call the girl and ask her. Apparently this family knows better than to try to tell Rebecca anything, right? To try to tell her what she's going to do. Apparently they know that's not going to work. But so they said, let us call the girl, which of course she's called a Na'ar, which is actually a male youth. We've talked about this before. The gender kind of misidentification might say something about Rebecca not being what in the ancient world was thought of as those feminine qualities. She instead has these masculine qualities, whatever. It's an interesting topic, but we're not going there. They called Rivka and they said to her, what do they ask her? Hatelchi im ha'ish hazeh. We get this verb based on lech, right? Here's your lamed and your chaf. Hatelchi. If you put a hey in front of a verb, it makes it a question. Hatelchi. Will you go with this guy? Vatomer. All she says is one word. Elech. I will lech. I will go. What is Abraham told? Lech lecha. Go. That is exactly what we have here with Rivka. Will you go? And she answers, Elech. I'm going to do we know, the reader and the omniscient narrator knows that this is echoing Avraham. She does not, of course. But she says, Elech, I will go. She is now doing what Avraham did. That is the kind of wife he wants for Yitzchak. Why? Maybe Avraham gets it that it's over between him and Yitzchak. And they need an Avraham figure because it ain't Yitzchak. And Sarah's gone. Maybe he knows he needs an Ivri, an Ivriyah in this case, someone who's willing to lech like he did. That element has to be brought into the next generation or the project might fail. And remember, if you're reading from Cass's perspective, we're watching God's project evolve. And maybe Rivka's the linchpin in making sure that this new relationship of covenant between a family that's going to become a people and Yud Hey Vav Hey, that new project is all dependent on an Ivriyah, a crosser over being willing to lech. Again, right? Another lecher needs to come into the next generation. All right, Bert?
Well, ostensibly, Avraham knows that Yitzhak is kind of a nebush. I mean, they went, and he didn't seem to know what was going on. We're not sure. And then he said, okay, he was going to lie down and just do this. And so Abraham, as I think you're saying, says we need somebody strong. We need a strong woman to get this man through whatever he's got to get through, because he'll never do it on his own.
Beautiful. So Abraham knows his son is a Nebuchadnezzar yeshiva bucher and is, going to sit and learn in the yeshiva all day. And that's the rabbinic tradition, of course. Anyway. So in any case, it seems clear that Abraham wants a young woman from his descent line, and he wants her to have to agree to cross over and to lech. That much we know, because that's the conditions he set on it. Okay, Betsy?
I'm a little confused about Ivri and crossover. Like crossover from what to what?
So from where he was to the promised land.
But I mean, is that where we get the word Ivrit?
Yes. He's the first one to be called an Ivri.
Which is a Hebrew.
But that's just taking the Hebrew letters and putting them into English letters. What does the Hebrew mean? What does that mean, a Hebrew? So there's scholarship that wants to say it comes from ha'over, the one who crossed over, right? The outsider, the one who left his place and crossed over.
Crossed over into this other people? Is that?
Yes, who went to Canaan. He went to Canaan and right, and becomes the progenitor of a people who will trace their lineage to him in that new place. Mm-hmm. It's not about indigeneity. It's about the opposite. The argument is never that we were indigenous in terms of our own foundational narrative. Our narrative says we crossed over. We were immigrants, right? We're not from Canaan.
So we crossed over into becoming a new people.
Yes. Because Abraham left everything, and Sarah left everything, and Rivka left everything. Isaac never moved. He just stayed in the same place all the time. But like all these other people left and went to Canaan, and that's how this project of the Jewish people in the land of Israel, that's our sacred mythology for that foundation, which is an odd foundational narrative if you think about it. Most people want to start with indigeneity. They're indigenous to that land. Not the Jews. That is not our story. Okay. Which is ironic because now the whole argument is about indigeneity. Right?
Why don't they call Israel Eretz HaIvrim?
I expect that on my desk by next week, Betsy. The answer to that question. Exactly. So why is it called Eretz Yisrael? Why do we call it? Believe me, I'm now meeting with the bar mitzvah kids who have that parsha. Right, we're writing their speeches, and so we're studying their Torah portions, and I'm asking them, why do we call ourselves the people Israel? Isn't it kind of an odd story for us to say, this is how we got our name? This is what we choose to call ourselves? The guy who wrestles with something that's an ish, a malach, a river demon, angel, we don't know, it's God. Really? That's what we call ourselves? What do you think that's about? So I would put that question to you, right, why Yisrael? Of all the things, all the stories, all the patriarchy, all the matriarchy, all that, why Yisrael? It's kind of an odd foundation story for our name. Okay, Bert?
Well, Jews are people who cross over into new areas. We're constantly looking for something new, not just in terms of land, but if you look at the kinds of things that Jews have done and the professions that Jews go in and our study and our thinking, we're always moving, hopefully forward, but always moving and never stopping.
Right, very Kaplanian, that we are an evolving religious civilization, right? That we evolve constantly, right? Okay. All right. So So Rebecca leaves. Okay, Robert, yes.
Well, I don't want to divert us, but my recollection is there's another whole dimension that we keep talking about. We're not talking about it this year, to this story that didn't first of all didn't the guy who went looking for the bride bring lots of bling and riches and stuff like that. That's
Yes.
number one. And number two, as I recall, Rebecca didn't. Our foundational story has so many examples of imperfect relationships. Akedah, of course, obviously is the biggest. Nothing could touch that one. But as I recall, Rebecca sitting there with not the greatest set of human examples in her house. So her saying, "Yeah, I'll go. I'm going to get the heck out of here." And it is really amazing to me that we have a foundational story like this, because I can't think of another religion that would do that.
Right, that would have everybody be such a mess. Our founders, right? The founders.
It's the reality of the world.
That's
but
right.
Foundational stories for religions are normally, deal with a lot of perfection, not a lot of imperfection.
Right, exactly. It's 100% what I appreciate about our tradition. I'm always thrilled to be back in Genesis, right? Because it's like, what a crazy people to have their founders, be these people who are just a mess. Because that's life, right? And so, we're not looking for perfection. Okay. I think I'm going to start teaching from the perspective of Sachs. The more I read his book, the more I love it, The Triumph of Life. Because he talks about this. He talks about, really, for us, it's not about anything other than affirming life. Not a perfect life, right? Yes, goodness and righteousness is important, but it's about the affirmation that life is good. To be alive, to be in the messiness of relationship, to be in all these complicated situations is still a blessing. It is good. I love that. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So here comes Isaac, who had just come back from where? Be'er Lahai Roi. What happened at Be'er Lahai Roi, people? This is where Hagar weeps for Ishmael and encounters an angel. What is Isaac doing in Be'er Lahai Roi? Is he going to long for his stepmother and his half-brother?
Yep, he misses them.
He misses them. He's not talking to his father. His mom's gone. She's in Hebron maybe. And he goes to Be'er Lahai Roi. He goes to look for Hagar's people, his stepmom, and his half-brother. That's my read this year. I'm just trying to show you this year. I keep looking at this going, oh my gosh, what? Poor Isaac. Poor Isaac. Okay, so he's in Be'er Lahai Roi. He's walking in the field toward evening, and he lifts his eyes. So this is an action of agency, and sees camels approaching. Well, what happens for Rivka? She lifts up her eyes. She also exercises agency. And what happens? She sees Yitzchak and she falls off her camel. Now, you might say, Vatipol me'al hagamal. It's a euphemism for, that's how you say she alighted from her camel. But the Hebrew word for nafal, Vatipol, is literally she fell off her camel. And she asks who this guy is. And she's told, this is my master, by Eliezer, this is my master, meaning this is your betrothed. And she takes the veil and she covers herself. Okay, Alex.
I'm sorry. Is there any way you can summarize what's happened since we started? I'm a little lost. I love a little clarification. I'm sorry, maybe I'm just distracted, but I know that, Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, can you take it from there? Just like, 10 seconds. Sorry. Just so I know where I'm at.
At the end of the Akedah, which we looked at the very beginning of this shiur, at the very end, it just says Avraham returned to his servants. Presumably Yitzchak did too, but we don't. The reason I lifted that up this year is because I'm just noticing all of these holes, all of these lonelinesses, all of this misery, right, going on in this family. So Avraham and Yitzchak come back. Then we're told Sarah dies. We're not told anything else. They come back, Sarah dies. She's not where they are. She's somewhere else. So this year I'm focused on, okay, so she left Avraham and Yitzchak, right? She dies. Avraham has to go to mourn her and deal with her corpse. He buries her. He buys a cave to bury her in. That's the way you buried in the ancient world. You did secondary burial. So he puts her in a cave. Her flesh rots off. Then you go get the bones and you bury them in an ossuary. So he takes care of her body. Now he's got to turn to his son and dealing with succession. He's getting old. So he now needs a wife for his son Yitzchak. So he sends his servant Eliezer back to his hometown, Abraham's hometown, to get a local girl related to him for Yitzchak. He doesn't want a Canaanite wife for Yitzchak, and he doesn't want Yitzchak to leave Canaan to go look for a wife. So he keeps him there in Canaan. He sends Eliezer to get a wife. Eliezer puts all these conditions on who that's going to be. Rivka fulfills all of those conditions, magically, and comes back. And here we are with her coming back with Eliezer the servant, and Isaac sees her from afar. She sees Isaac and falls off her camel. That's where we're at. We skipped over the whole acquiring of Rebecca, except she's asked, will you go with this guy, Eliezer? And she says yes. Okay. So now let's see what we're told. She veils herself because she's told this is your betrothed. What are we told right after that? Isaac brings her into the tent of his mother Sarah and took Rivka as his wife. Isaac loved her and thus found comfort after his mother's death. Okay. So this, all right, I'm going to come back to this, but this is the only comfort we get in this, right, whole story. And that's where we're going to focus for the rest of this year. But look, I want you to see something else though. Abraham is old. He needs to see to succession, right? What are we told next? What's the very next thing we're told? Abraham takes another wife and has 12 children. People, 12 children. Abraham wills everything that he owned to Yitzchak. But Abraham is not on his deathbed when he arranges this wife for Isaac. He takes another wife. Once he's settled Rivka with Yitzchak, he goes and marries somebody else and has 12 sons. Who else is going to have 12 sons? All right, I'm just saying, right? So Abraham's not on his deathbed. He's nowhere close. He's going to have a whole nother generation of kids with a new wife. Boom, Sarah's buried. She's replaced with Keturah. And, right? And he has 12 sons. Okay, so he moves on. Laura.
We want to go back to this at all, but what do we mean by Isaac brings her into the tent of his mother Sarah when Sarah's now gone? Is that some sort of comforting metaphor, or is it physically, where are we, or is it as opposed to his father?
Yes, and yes. Okay. Right, so we're going to go there. All right, Betsy?
I was just wondering, like, this part of the story about Abraham is so minimized that he took another wife and had all these children. Do we hear anything about his children?
It's interesting because Cass talks about it. Actually, he says, actually what's just happened is Abraham has populated the area with all of the neighboring peoples of the Israelites, the Midianites, like all these people are going to descend from these 12. So Abraham has just given birth to the progenitors of all of the kinfolk around early Israel, who Cass says is going to make it a more friendly region for the Israelites. I don't think that's true. I think this is another how the elephant got its trunk story, right? That all these peoples are related through Abraham. They're cousins, right? So these peoples have a loose kinship history, right, of some kind, and they all read themselves into this progenitor Avraham. But what, for my purposes this year in bringing the story the way I have, is I'm like, Avraham goes and starts a whole new family. Poor Isaac.
Yeah.
Like mom's gone, right? And so all he has, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that he has Rivka. I'm saying this year I just got it, like how important that relationship is for him when we just read past the fact that Avraham goes and takes another wife and has 12 kids.
Yeah.
12 sons with her.
And do we know anything about Keturah? Like where does she come from? Who is she?
Right.
Nothing.
Well, also, these could have been interpreted as these are the blessings, right? You will have many, many generations after you. And here they are. Here are the 12, but they're not. So the key was Sarah, not Abraham.
Now we're going to go back to the question about taking her into his mother's tent. Correct, Laura. That is one of the ways. Where am I? Oh, sorry. I got to go back. Okay. So Bert, then Susan, then I'm going to go into this last verse.
I think they may be saying the same thing as Laura just said, but clearly the barrenness, the lack of children had to do with Sarah and not with Abraham, because he immediately started to become a child.
I wasn't saying that. I was saying Sarah's so important that it's her child who becomes the Israelites and the blessing.
I was just talking physically, and the other, physically, obviously he was able to have children.
Well, we already know that because he had Ishmael, so we know it's not him.
No, but big time. Okay. The other piece is clearly in line with everything else we've learned. He was a mama's boy, and I guess you're going to get into this. I mean, psychiatrists could have a field day with this. You get a new wife and you take her into your mother's bed. Duh.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go there. Susan?
All I was going to say was that recent genetics, there's just genetically basically no difference in us and the Palestinians. They're all Abraham's descendants. We're all so genetically close that if we just said, yeah, these people back then were awful to each other, but can't we just get together now? What a world it would be.
Yeah. Amen. And look, our foundational story is that we were related to all these people, right? That's what I was trying to emphasize is your point is well taken. And it's always been our perspective.
Yeah.
Our perspective is not, they have nothing to do with us. Our perspective starting here has been that all the peoples of that region are related to us.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's other people who accuse us of thinking otherwise. That's not our story. Our story from the beginning, from here, is that Abraham is the progenitor of all of the neighboring peoples of early Israel. Okay. So I want to go back to this point of he takes her into the tent of his mother and takes her as wife, meaning, they have intercourse. And Torah tells us he loves her. We don't get this anywhere else. We don't get this business of love anywhere else. And something about that love gives him comfort after the death of his mother. So the way I've been reading the text this morning, this year, is like from everybody's so bereft and everybody's so lonely. And it's all so disjointed between Hagar and Ishmael having to get gone. Isaac's wandering around, maybe looking for Hagar because his mom's not there. His dad tried to kill him. Abraham picks another wife and has 12 more kids, and screw Isaac. Like, I'm going to pay attention to the new family. Like, it just feels like everything is about bereft, alone, schisms, divisions, breakage, estrangement, except for this. Except for Rivka, who says, Elech, I will go. And they look up at each other. They each take that moment to express agency. They see each other. She falls off her camel, and Bert loves that one. And he finds comfort in her, and he loves her. All right. Now, if you're reading based on Savina Tuval, who reads these as originally matriarchal stories, Laura, of course Rivka has to be brought into Sarah's tent because Rivka is the new matriarch, right? She has taken Sarah's place. Sarah's dead, and she comes into Sarah's place because she is now the reigning matriarch. And it will be through her that the line continues. Now, that this line is kept even when it's a patriarchal narrative, but it seems that there's something about Rivka being connected to Sarah that is comforting for Isaac and is important to our narrative in terms of the, constancy of staying true to the Abraham and Sarah legacy. There's something important there about Rivka being that link. That's clear. So he takes her into Sarah's tent, makes love with her, takes her as his wife, and loves her, and finally finds comfort. I don't think it's just comfort after his mother's death. I think that's for sure true. But I think also we never see him engage with Abraham again. And we know Abraham goes and takes another wife and has a whole nother family. So it's not like Abraham was hanging around trying to comfort Isaac, either after the Akedah or after his mother's death. So in my reading this year of this, it's like Isaac's all alone. After the Akedah and what was done to him, and after the death of Sarah, he's all alone in the world. He has neither parent. He's lost his brother, his half-brother that he grew up with. He lost his stepmother. He's all alone. So this moment of us being told he loves Rivka and he finds comfort, I think he finds comfort for all of the horrible ruptures in his life. And she has left everybody she knows behind to come to this position in the family. All right. So looking at the commentary, this is the only bright spot in the Parsha. I got to tell you, that reading it this year for me, and maybe it's again because of my own brokenness and whatever that we're all struggling with and the state of the world. But I looked at a lot of commentary, but when I looked at the IJS commentary, it talks about the quality of love, and it talks about the quality of, this is Margolius, and he talks about this love for Rivka, and he says he wants to talk about this as manifesting a shared recognition of a deeper truth arising from their lived experience. An insight arising for Isaac from the trauma of the Akedah and his mother's death, and for Rivka out of the disruption of her journey into the uncertain void between her past and future. So why did that draw me? Because what if this love in some ways comes out of their answer, as an answer, and directly comes out of their perceiving of each other as someone they love? There's this relationship being one of love. Maybe it comes out of his loneliness, his brokenness, the ruptures in his family. And for her, having to leave everything and not knowing where the heck she's going and what family she's joining and what her future is going to look like. That's where a lot of us are standing right now. We're not sure what the future is going to look like, whether you're looking at our country, whether you're looking at the Middle East, whether you're looking at those of us who are sitting in someone else's house. Like, right, that place of rupture, of not knowing what's coming and having no clue about what it's going to look like. Maybe it's out of these places of rupture that love is possible. I like that this year. That was helpful to me this year. Okay. So then he's saying, if that's true, then we understand ahava, love here, not in the emotional sense, but as connoting an awareness of the sacred energy permeating and connecting every aspect of life. Think Yitzhak Greenberg, The Triumph of Life. Right? So what if this love is an awareness of the sacred energy permeating and connecting every aspect of life? Meaning it's not because things go well. It's not because you had a great success. It's not because your relationships are perfect. It's not because you've been raised by healthy parents. Right? There's something else, though, an awareness of the sacred energy permeating and connecting every aspect of life. That we can access. That love is what ultimately sees us through and has us be whole and has us be able to live into other relationships of love. To practice ahava in this sense means cultivating awareness of the underlying or transcending connectivity of everything out of our experienced brokenness of life. I like that. I like that. It means waking up to the interrelatedness of all, an insight which, paradoxically, can happen most powerfully in a moment when we experience disconnection and alienation, as Rebecca and Isaac do in this parasha. I like that. Yeah? So it just gives me hope, right? Like, because otherwise, like, we can throw up our hands and go, it's all such a mess. But that's exactly precisely what this parsha is about. It's all a mess. And we're lonely and things break and there's ruptures and there are betrayals and there's loneliness and there's all that. And that is sometimes how we come to a recognition of the connectedness of all is in these moments of disconnection and alienation. And I love that interpretation. And hang on okay, Betsy, because then I want to close with Art Green. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that this notion of the shared brokenness of life, I mean, that's what many of us are going through right now, having lost our homes, that like, at least here where we've landed, we've created this whole community, and because we have this shared history of this brokenness of our, the destruction of our homes. And so this really resonates with me, what you just read, because I feel like we're recreating a community here because we have this shared experience.
Yes, of brokenness and alienation and strangeness and I don't know-ness and it's all goneness and loneliness and disruption and exactly. So I think it's that experience that there's a kind of kinship, there's a kind of love, there's a kind of connection that comes from that shared alienation. I agree. I loved it this year and totally own that. It may be because I too have lost my own, that all the rupture spoke to me in the parsha, and then this beautiful interpretation of ahava, of love. And so I want to give you such a delicious closing. This is how Art Green describes it, because around the Shema there are blessings that are about love. There's a blessing about love preceding the Shema, and then the Ve'ahavta is right after the Shema. So the Shema, famously for the rabbis, is wrapped in blessings about love. Okay. Art Green points out that the sequence of blessings around the Shema and Shachrit, the morning prayer service, awakens us to this movement of ahava through the natural world. So this explanation we just had of ahava, this interconnectedness of all things, that awareness, Here's how Rabbi Arthur Green describes it, which is I forgot that this is one of my favorite paragraphs in the world. God shines light upon the earth. The trees in the forest stretch upward to receive that sunlight, converting its rays into the chlorophyll they need to exist. The sun stands as a metaphor for the divine light toward which all nature stretches. That is the first blessing, Yotzer Or, who creates light, right? That's the blessing in the morning service that precedes the Shema. In the second blessing, Ahava Rabba Ahavtanu, you have loved us with a great love. We acknowledge that we too stretch forth to receive that same light. We convert it into our chlorophyll. We call it love. That is our stuff of life. The inner flow, that which allows us to be fully human as the tree is fully tree. In Ve'ahavta, and you shall love Yud He Vav He, your God, we then verbalize that love, share, reflect on it, and turn it into teachings that help us to live, to pass the love on, and to become ever more human, ever more the divine image. That is who we are. Little engines of humanization, humming away at the translation of Niyut, the divine stream of energy or life force, into our beloved and life-giving force of love.
You've been listening to Rabbi Amy Bernstein's Friday morning Torah study from Kehillat Israel in Pacific Palisades, California. For more information, go to our website, www.ourki.org.